There comes a moment in life when you look around, and nothing feels the same anymore. Not because the world changed, but because you did. You have outgrown who you used to be. And growth is uncomfortable. It's not always fireworks and celebration. Sometimes it feels like confusion, like distance, like silence. You start noticing things that once felt normal, now feel heavy. Conversations that once excited you now drain you. Environments that once felt safe now feel limiting. People you once aligned with now feel distant. And that can feel lonely. But loneliness is often the space between identities. You are not who you were, but you are not fully who you are becoming yet. You are in transition. And transition feels unstable. The old version of you survived. She tolerated. She adapted. She shrank when necessary. She people-pleased to maintain peace. And you needed her. That version of you protected you. She did the best she could with what she knew. But you cannot stay in survival mode forever. At some point, survival becomes self-abandonment. And something inside you said, no more. Now your standards are different. You crave depth. You crave honesty. You crave alignment. You don't want surface level anymore. You don't want almost. You don't want inconsistency. You don't want confusion disguised as mystery. You want clarity. And clarity changes everything. When you outgrow your old self, you stop explaining your worth. You stop chasing validation. You stop shrinking to fit spaces that were never designed for your expansion. You begin to choose differently. And choosing differently means losing what once felt familiar. That's the part no one talks about. Growth requires loss. You may lose relationships. You may lose routines. You may lose versions of yourself that once felt essential. But what you gain is alignment. You gain peace. You gain discernment. You gain boundaries. You begin to say no without guilt. And that feels strange at first. Because the old you would have said yes. The old you would have overextended, overgiven, overcompromised. But the new you understands something powerful. Self-respect is not selfish. It is sacred. When you outgrow your old identity, you also outgrow your old fears. You are no longer afraid of being misunderstood. You are no longer afraid of standing alone. You are no longer afraid of disappointing others to protect yourself. Because you finally understand. Disappointing others is sometimes necessary to stop disappointing yourself. That realization changes your posture. You walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. You no longer argue to be chosen. You no longer beg for reciprocity. You no longer romanticize potential. You look at actions. You look at consistency. You look at effort. And if it's not there, you walk away. That's growth. Growth is not becoming louder. It is becoming clearer. You don't need to prove your evolution. You feel it. You notice your reactions are calmer. Your decisions are slower. Your energy is more protected. You don't engage in drama. You don't entertain chaos. You don't negotiate your peace. And that's when people say, you've changed. Yes, you have. And that's the point. You were not meant to stay the same. You were meant to expand. The discomfort you feel right now is expansion. The distance you feel from certain people is expansion. The craving for solitude is expansion. You are not isolating. You are recalibrating. You are upgrading your internal standards. And upgrades require letting go of outdated software. The old beliefs. The old narratives. The old identity. You no longer identify with your wounds. You identify with your wisdom. You no longer define yourself by what hurt you. You define yourself by what you've learned. That is power. You are not cold. You are discerning. You are not distant. You are intentional. You are not arrogant. You are aware. And awareness creates space. Space between reaction and response. Space between impulse and choice. Space between attachment and alignment. In that space, you become sovereign. You realize you don't need to rush. You don't need to chase. You don't need to convince. What is aligned with your new self will recognize you. And what cannot meet your evolution will fall away. Let it. Not everything is meant to grow with you. Some people were chapters, not the whole story. Some versions of you were stepping stones, not the destination. You have outgrown who you used to be, and that is not betrayal. It is graduation. You are stepping into a higher standard of self, higher awareness, higher boundaries, higher expectations, not from ego, from alignment. The old you tolerated confusion. The new you chooses clarity. The old you accepted crumbs. The new you requires reciprocity. The old you feared endings. The new you trusts new beginnings. This is your next level. And next levels require new identities. You cannot carry outdated versions of yourself into your expansion. Release her with gratitude. Thank her for surviving. And then step forward. Because who you are becoming is stronger, is calmer, is wiser, is unshakable. You didn't lose yourself. You elevated yourself. And elevation always feels unfamiliar at first. But unfamiliar does not mean wrong. It means new. And you're ready. And sometimes, outgrowing your old self feels like grief. Not because you want to go back, but because familiarity is comfortable, even when it hurts. The old version of you knew how to survive certain dynamics. She knew how to read the room. She knew how to adjust her tone, her needs, her expectations to avoid conflict. She knew how to stay small enough to be accepted. And acceptance once felt like safety. But safety built on shrinking is not real safety. It is slow suffocation. You may not have noticed it while you were in it. Because when you live in survival mode long enough, discomfort feels normal. Chaos feels familiar. Inconsistency feels expected. But once you grow, you cannot unsee it. You start recognizing patterns. You notice when someone only calls when they need something. You notice when effort isn't reciprocated. You notice when you're the one holding everything together. And awareness creates discomfort. Because now you have a choice. You can either pretend you didn't see it, or you can honor your growth. And honoring your growth means walking away from dynamics that once defined you. That's why everything feels different. You are no longer operating from fear of loss. You are operating from fear of self-betrayal. And self-betrayal costs more than loneliness ever will. When you outgrow your old self, your nervous system begins to recalibrate. You may feel restless. You may feel detached. You may feel like you don't fully belong anywhere for a while. That's because you are between frequencies. The old frequency feels too small. The new frequency hasn't fully stabilized yet. So you float in the in-between. And the in-between is uncomfortable. But it is powerful. Because this is where identity reconstruction happens. You are rebuilding your self-image. You are redefining what you tolerate. You are rewriting the internal narrative that once said, I have to earn love. I have to prove my worth. I have to stay quiet to keep peace. No, the evolved version of you understands. Love does not require performance. Respect does not require overextension. Peace does not require self-erasure. And that realization changes your posture in the world. You stop reacting instantly. You pause. You observe. You assess. And in that pause, you reclaim power. You begin asking yourself different questions. Does this feel aligned? Is this mutual? Am I shrinking here? Am I expanding here? Those questions protect you. The old version of you tolerated confusion because clarity felt confrontational. The new version of you prefers uncomfortable truth over comfortable illusion. And that's growth. Growth is choosing clarity even when it disrupts comfort. It's choosing boundaries even when they create distance. It's choosing yourself even when it disappoints others. And yes, some people will not like the new you. Because the new you has standards. The new you has limits. The new you does not bend as easily. But bending is not the same as evolving. You bent for years. Now you are standing in your boundaries, standing in your discernment, standing in your truth. And when you stand firmly, unstable connections fall away. That is not cruelty. That is gravity. You are becoming heavier in self-respect. And anything that cannot hold that weight will drop. Let it drop. You do not need to rescue connections that are collapsing under your growth. You do not need to convince anyone that you've changed. Your peace will speak for you. Your calm will speak for you. Your standards will speak for you. And the right people will adjust. The aligned people will rise with you. The mature connections will deepen. Because growth does not isolate you forever. It filters you. It filters out what was built on insecurity. It filters out what was sustained by imbalance. It filters out what survived only because you were smaller. Now you are larger, not louder, not arrogant. Larger in awareness, larger in boundaries, larger in emotional intelligence. You respond instead of react. You choose instead of chase. You release instead of cling. And releasing is not weakness. It is mastery. You are mastering yourself. You are mastering your impulses. You are mastering your attachments. You are mastering your emotional world. And self-mastery is the highest level of growth. The old you needed validation. The new you validates yourself. The old you feared abandonment. The new you fears self-abandonment more. The old you tried to control outcomes. The new you trusts alignment. That shift is everything. And yes, it can feel lonely, because not everyone evolves at the same pace. Some people are still comfortable where you once were. And that's okay, but you are not there anymore. You have outgrown that version. And outgrowing is not rejection. It is refinement. You are refining your energy, refining your circle, refining your habits, refining your identity. You are stepping into a cleaner, clearer, more intentional version of yourself. And clarity will always feel sharper than confusion. But sharp does not mean wrong. It means precise. You are becoming precise. Precise about what you allow. Precise about who has access. Precise about what you deserve. And once you taste alignment, you cannot settle for misalignment again. That's why everything feels different. Because you are no longer negotiating your worth. You are embodying it. And embodiment changes everything. You have outgrown who you used to be. And that is not loss. That is elevation. That is evolution. That is expansion. And expansion may feel unfamiliar, but it is exactly where you are meant to be.